You can't hear me. All right, okay. Let me just tell you that I was here, last year sometime, and I swear to you, there's a man in the newspaper office that we went to, and he said the best ribs in town are a takeout place, you know? And he took me to his father's place. We sat down there, and his father has a tavern, and we sat down there and we ordered the ribs. And I swear to you, they were the best I have ever had. I don't care what Memphis says. I don't care what Kansas City says. You got the best. So, anyway, how many are at their first Star Trek convention? Okay, that's all right. How many have never seen me in person before? Oh, good. Then my jokes will be fresh. Terrific. Well, we'll see if they're jokes. Okay. Anyway, but what I find out is that most people, once they pass to 18 or 20, they really kind of forget how to ask questions, you know? And they all think they know everything and everything else, so they don't ask questions, right? So I feel that I have to kind of teach you how to ask questions, and the way I do that is that I give you a question, and then I answer it, then I give you another question, I answer it, so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. And before you know that, I think you kind of get the idea, okay? So, anyway, this is what happens. Is that when people buy the plans of the enterprise, right? And they check through them and everything else, and they look at it, you know, and they bring out the magnifying glasses, they check it all out, and they say, no, there are no toilets. You must understand, of course, that we do have phasers. I don't think I'll take that any further. Okay, see, you're quite right. Anyway, now the next question is, what would I do if I were captain? Well, the first thing I would do would be to limit Ensign Kirk to one girl every 5 years. Well, I've got a good overview of the it became the love lives of Captain Kirk rather than Star Trek, where no man has gone before. Obviously, he has been there before. So anyway, Sulu would never be allowed to carry arms.
Doesn't know.
You don't know George like I know George. What you see on the screen, it looks like one take. 21 takes. That's the way it is. And every time George brings out a sword, you know, everybody scatters. They just, you know, they know George and everything. As a matter of fact, if you ever went hunting with George, you would find his shotgun right here all the time. Okay? We would hire some writers and give Uhura some other lines other than hailing frequencies open, sir. Right? Because he deserves more. He's so pretty, and one heck of a good singer. And besides that, hey, we're getting a little life out of these babies, huh? And besides that, she loves me. Hey, I gotta say, so anyway, Chekhov would never be allowed to scream again. He was getting too good at it. And when we finished reading number 6, we're all sitting around a table. A big cheer went up from everybody. And the reason for the cheer, of course, was because Chekhov didn't cheer, was the fact that there was no line that says Chekhov screams. Right? And Bones would never be allowed to say he's dead yet. Because he really doesn't know what he's talking about. You know? I mean, I've died a couple of times, and he brought me back. But the point is, you know, is that when you're there, lying up flat, and you see all these brilliant, brilliant lights just coming down on you, you know, and you're right at the gates of heaven. And it's nirvana. And then he comes along with his little salt and pepper shaker and shakes you alive. And, you know, you get up and you look around and you say, oh, you again, huh? Well, thanks very much, McCoy. You know, I mean, and how can he be allowed to do that, right? I was ready to go to heaven. You know, I may not get there any other way, you know. Anyway, so, all right. Finally, Mr. Spock would never, ever, ever, ever be allowed in my engine room. You know what used to happen? Only one person. Okay. You know what used to happen is that this engineer who built the ship knows how everything runs and knows the computers and what they will do back, forth, and backwards and what you would call it backwards. Spock would come down whenever the ship got in trouble. He'd come on down, and there would be Scotty off in the corner saying, oh, gee, Mr. Spock, you're just so marvelous. But all I have to do is watch you, and one of these years I'll be called a miracle worker. Right? And finally, the last time that he was in my engine room, he died. And we can't have that. He's the best director we ever had. Now the next question is, how did I get the role of Scotty? Well, to cut a long story short, about 2 weeks before they were going to do the second pilot of Star Trek, my agent sent me to read for the part of a Scotland Yard inspector on a show called Burke's Law, with Gene Barry in the lead. A few of you are old enough so that you saw it. How many of you ever saw that show? Oh, there's it. Must have been about 20. Pretty good. Anyway, so I went there and I gave them about 3 different British accents. And at the end they said, well, Jimmy, that's very good, but, you know, we kind of think you look a little too much like Gene Barry, you know. And I jumped right in and I said, I think I'm a hell of a lot better looking than he is. And they said, yeah, well, we know, but it would look like nepotism. So I said, oh, okay, you know. So I left, and 10 days later, Jim Goldstone called me, and he's the director of that. And he called me and said, Jimmy, he said, I'm directing the next pilot of Star Trek, and I would like you to come and do some of your accents for them. So I said, who are they? He told me. So I said, well, okay. Because in those days, I mean, I was very junior in Hollywood around that time, you know, 3 or 4 years I'd been there, or less. And so I went down there, and they handed me a piece of the script. Didn't have any part for an engineer on it, you know. So I proceeded to read somebody else's lines anyway, and I did about 7 or 8 different accents for them. And at the end, Gene Roddenberry said, well, which accent do you like? I said, well, in my experience, that if you want an engineer, you better be a Scotsman. And Gene said, well, we rather like that one too. And I says, good, I'll call him Montgomery Scott. And I started in to say what I was going to do with the character and the rest of the character. And Gene he doesn't like to have the wind taken out of his sails, you know. So anyway, he cut me down pretty soon. You know, I said, okay, Jimmy, that's enough, right? Anyway, supposing though that they had picked some other accent other than a Scotsman, so I can tickle his throat here now. And I hope I have one of those things that usually stops it. Right, okay. Let me just get one of those out before we start into this other pilot thing. By the way, these will stop a tickling throat so quickly, and they are, unfortunately, they're a little expensive, but they are called Hold, H-O-L-D. All right? So this one is the only one I have. All right, now, this isn't a commercial for them. They're just so darn good for me. Anyway. The thing is that I need a... I'll save it. Anywho, supposing that when Captain Kirk calls down to engineering and says, give me Ward 12, instead of hearing the familiar, Ward 12, Captain? My engine just can't take that. Instead of hearing that, you hear, see? Or you hear, oi, babe, what is this Ward 12 business? I can give you 3 4s or 4 3s. I can give you 11 wholesale. You don't like that guy, you cheap one. Oh, we have... Now listen here, Captain. I've told you many times before, don't let you go above that war bank. Oh, that's an order. Well, hold on. What we do? Captain, you are playing with me, huh? And also, I noticed that on the last planet you did not get the girl. You should have come to Lucky Pierre. Oh, we have... Captain, are you calling me on the side of your phone? It's not the side of your phone? Oh. Walk 12? Oh, no, Confucius say walk 12 is not good. Walk 13 is even worse. Oh, we have... What is this, Captain? Oh, you just woke me up. I was having a little nap. Ward 12. Ward 12. Never heard of him. No, I remember now. No, it was a Scotsman. He told me. And he says that you take those old dilithium crystals and you cuddle them and you stroke them and you hug them and tighten and everything else. And before you know it, he says they kind of perk up and pay attention to you. And but I'll work on that after I finish my nap. Okay. Or we have, ha-ha! You be young, Kurt, eh? Well, sir, I'll see you hanging from the highest yard arm in Starfleet before I'll give you a Ward 12. Ha-ha! I think my favorite, though, would be Reggie. And we could have had a lot of fun with him, I think, if they had written him in. But anyway, he would have answered the captain something like this. I'm terribly sorry, sir, but I can't seem to get the little buggers to move anymore. Okay, now I think you know how to ask questions, right? How much rope have I got here? Not too much, huh? Because if I pull any rope off this, I'm going to pull things off this counter up here, am I not? I've got enough to run the whole stage. Not much. Okay. Well, don't let me pull anything. You should have a barrier up there. Anywho, so I'll try, yes, ma'am.
I'm with Marion High School.
You're with Marion?
Marion High School.
Oh, Marion High School. Oh, yes, I can read it. I just wasn't looking at your chest, dear. I mean, you know, hard, but be it for me not to look on the chest. Yes.
I have to be down at the other side of town at 6:30.
Oh, honey, no, I cannot start an autograph session now. I am sorry, but that's the way life is. You know, I mean, I can't take on. This is the question and answer period, and I'm sorry. Okay. All right, he'll get it for you. Okay, good. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you did such a good job with Jordy on there. Are you going to do another one with him?
I have no idea. It was great fun working with Jordy. And I just heard that in New York City, Star Trek The Next Generation, that one called Relics, had the highest rating of any show ever in New York City. Yes, sir, you're going to have to come up here, please, if you have a question. Whoever had your hand up, you, come up. Please do not hesitate to come up when I say come up. That means run. Yes, sir. Here, come over here to the microphone.
Thank you. Now, you've been in the original series, you've done the films, and now you've done Star Trek The Next Generation. As an actor that's had a lot of experience with other forms of TV, what would you like to really get back into? I mean, would you like to be in a series? Would you like to do a movie?
I'd like to do a number 7 movie. I can't really hear you. Come on.
What was in the green bottle when you were with Geordi on The Next Generation?
Oh, I think it was Gatorade. Okay, yes, ma'am. You're going to have to come on up, honey. I wish the heck I was down on the floor here. But then not everybody can see me. Yes, ma'am. Here we go. Come on. Closer, closer.
What is your favorite episode of Star Trek that you were in?
My episode favorite, The Doomsday Machine. Because it was written in more scientific terms, and any engineer would like that, you know. And so I really like that one. The best movie was number 6. And then yes.
Special effects.
Scotch. Where was I? Well, let's see now. Oh yeah, the American Broadcasting Corporation's version of The Wrath of Khan. Not the one that Paramount put out on the screens and the one that's in the videotapes and everything else, because some dirty rascal cut my part to pieces. And I think I know who did it, but so far I have not accused anybody of it. But just a minute here. And then I like number 4 after that. And because the one that the American Broadcasting Corporation put on television, Nicholas Meyer edited that one. So somebody else at Paramount edited the terrible number 2, the terrible 2s. Yes, ma'am, your question. Yes, come on up. Come on.
Two questions. Hi. Hi. Who did you enjoy working with the most on Star Trek?
Actually, Leonard. Okay.
How they would get it, you to big people up and then.
Oh, that's a secret. No, you know how it's done is that we would stand here and they would run a camera on us for 30 seconds. Then we'd disappear. We'd go someplace.
Oh, okay.
They'd run the camera again. And all they have to do then is edit you in or edit you out. And then they send it to an optical company. It's much easier now than it was. But in those days, we sent it to an optical company. Now they do it all with computers.
Okay.
You know, it's unbelievable what the way computers have changed the motion picture business. Yes, sir, come on up. And then you, sir, you come on up too. Any questions over here? Yes, sir. You're next. Right.
All the time you spent with Mr. Roddenberry, what would be the most memorable?
Well, the most memorable times I spent with Mr. Roddenberry were not on the show, but you'll just hang on a second here, fellas. Lean against that or sit down or something. The most memorable times with Gene was out in a sailboat, And I can tell you that he's one heck of a navigator and a lousy engineer. Okay? Because we were sleeping on a big private island off Santa Barbara there one night, and we woke up in the morning and there was a fog that thick. So we got out to the sailboat, and he said, well, he says, I'll chart a course here, and he says, you get the ship ready to go, and all that sort of stuff. So I did, and we started out. Of course, we were putt-putting along, you know, but we had to go 40 miles, and we came within about 50 yards of Santa Barbara Harbor, where he had aimed us. Another time, we were out going from the marina over to Avalon Harbor on Catalina, right? We were supposed to have a race with some people, but there was only a 1-knot wind, so that didn't do too much. And anyway, so we started the auxiliary engine, and we putt-putted along there again, and after about 20 minutes, the engine stopped, and we couldn't get it started. And so we put up the sails again, and you know, instead of arriving at Avalon at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we arrived in there with a 1-knot wind at 9 o'clock at night. Gene called for a mechanic to fly over in the morning, right? The mechanic checked the engine out the next morning. He says, you're out of gas. Before we left the marina, I had said to Gene, let's check our gas before we go any further, you know. And he looked at me when when the mechanic said we're out of gas, and he said, shut up. Okay?
Okay, in your last Star Trek episode, you and 2 other original cast members appeared in Next Generation. What is going to be the plans for future episodes with the original cast? Is there going to be any future with the original cast?
I have no idea what's going to happen, but you do know that when I left the Next Generation, they gave me that little shuttle, you know, and I'm scooting around having a ball up there. And but also now that they know the formula, they may have everybody up, and I don't think they can bring DeForest Kelly back looking as old as he looked on the pilot, you know, because that was, I used to ask, people used to ask me questions of how many, how would I like to be on the Next Generation? I'd say, hell no, I don't want to look that old. So anyway, that's that. Yeah, you have another question?
The question was, my girlfriend wanted to know what day he was born, and I wanted to shake your hand.
Oh, good. I was born March 3rd, 1920. That makes me 72 years old today. Okay, hi.
You're a great actor, and I'd like to know why you consented to do what I feel was a degrading scene in Star Trek V when they made you hit your head on that ceiling. I mean, you're just above that. That was beneath what Scotty did.
I know, but you know, when you don't bother to fight City Hall every step of the way, and unfortunately, that's what Bill wanted. And Bill has a habit of trying to degrade people. You know? And that's no funny, that's not a laughing matter either, you know.
I mean, you didn't succeed, so I mean, you're here and you look great.
You're darn right.
William Shatner directed number 5, wasn't it?
Well, he did something with number 5.
There are not any more plans for him to direct any more movies.
I hope not. No, because unfortunately for us, when Bill directs, he thinks of himself. When Leonard directs, he thinks of the show. And there's all that, that's all different.
Leonard Nimoy over at the William Shatner's group.
Oh, absolutely. Didn't you just hear me say it?
Well, I have 2 questions for you, actually. For one, I never heard how Mr. I can't remember his name. The writer.
Nicholas Meyer?
No.
What writer? Gene Roddenberry?
Yeah. I never heard how he died.
Well, he just got too sick. That's all. You know, he had a lot of problems with his blood and everything else, and he just died. Okay?
My second question is, my friend Chris, he's in the back, wanted to know if you could repeat that line before you hit your head on the thing in Star Trek 5.
What, the line where before I hit my head? Yeah, but I know this ship like the back of my hand. Much better. I don't want to be leaning all over the place. Right. Hi.
Just wondering if you or any of the other cast members are as interested in science and computers in real life as you obviously are.
I am, but they aren't. Yeah. No, I'm the only one who's really interested in science, and I'm not that interested in computers because I never get a chance to sit down and practice a computer. You know, I mean, I knew that 8, 10 years ago. You know, because it's more than that actually. Because you know, I sit down for 3 or 4 days to learn about a computer, then I'm gone for 2 weeks. You know, there's no way that I can come back and practice and all that sort of stuff. And it's kind of terrible, but you know, I've got my children, they can do it. They can do everything. Right, okay.
I was wondering if you had any future plans for acting?
As a matter of fact, I always hope to have lots of plans for acting. I certainly hope we're going to do a number 7. I don't know if that's possible or not, but some people seem to think so. Then I have a movie already done where I play a psychiatrist. I have 4 or 5 neat little scenes with the star of the show, who is, you wouldn't know his name, but he's very good in this. It's called The Last Paisan, and I play a psychiatrist with no accent. All right? And then also I'm in Loaded Weapon, which is a takeoff of Lethal Weapon, where I do one line. I'm dressed as a policeman, and I do one as I pop up from a table and then pop down again, and it's a line that Scotty would do. Okay? All right, thank you. And Loaded Weapon is a takeoff of Lethal Weapon. Yes, sir. Come on.
First of all, nervous as hell. I've got 2 questions. First of all, in the original series, besides the role of Scotty, what other parts did you do? I knew of one.
I did a few extra voices of characters, and one of them was Sargon. I can't remember what the other ones are. One was a Melkoshian also. No, yeah. But I can't remember the other ones. Okay?
And the second question is of the audio tapes of Simon & Schuster based on books that you've narrated. Which one is your favorite?
Well, the one that between Tsar and Spock's son. You know, I forget the title of it now. Yesterday's Son? Time for Yesterday? Okay, that's the one I liked. Because I'll tell you that one of the incidents in that was usually it's a woman from New York who comes to Los Angeles, and you record these. Sometimes it takes about 5.5 hours for me to record them. And if I don't want to record any more on one day, then I finish it off another day, right? But most of the time I do them in one day. It depends on how I feel. And anyway, they also, they stop you. Maybe every page, they stop you and they say, well, would you do this again or do that again and everything else. And so you do it, and everything else. And sometimes the argument is about the pronunciation of a word. And I always tell them, yeah, but that's the way you pronounce it in New York. The rest of the country doesn't pronounce it that way, And anyway, but I end up doing it both ways. And, but there was this one called Yesterday's Son, right? Yeah, okay. I started out with a love scene, and 1 page went on, 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, 5. Page 38, the love scene was over. She had not stopped me once. And she said, oh, that was gorgeous. So, that's the one of those. Thank you. Thank you very much. I also, on the 10th of December, I will be doing relics. Yeah, I'm doing that one. Okay. All right. The last one I did, I don't know whether it's out now or not, is a very bad title, but it's about Captain Kirk when he was about 19 years old. And it's a terrible title. It's called Best Destiny. Ugh. What a terrible title. Come on, sweetie.
I was going to go ahead and ask how much engineering knowledge you actually have.
I do an awful lot of engineering reading. So, I mean, you have to figure it out for yourself. I've been doing that ever since I left high school, and I was 19 when I left high school.
I know that Scotty's love is engineering. Does he have any hopes of ever becoming captain, or is he going to stay in engineering?
Well, I don't really care whether I'm in charge of a ship or not. I just want to be the engineer on board that ship. Okay? All right, thank you. Thank you.
If you weren't an actor, what other job would you like to have?
Well, if I wasn't an actor, because, God shoved me into this business, I had nothing to do with it, really. If I wasn't an actor, I'd probably be a scientist of some sort, because I was very good in science. I ate it up, and mathematics. I was very good in that. And so that's probably what I'd be, but also, I think I would have really enjoyed being a farmer, but at that time, I had no idea about anything about farming, Okay? Thank you. Hi, how you doing now? Come over here. I'm not going to bite you.
On the episode of Monks Women, the dilithium crystals looked like diamonds, but in the alternative factor, they were more flat-shaped. What was the real shape, and how did they power the ship?
Well, the first one, they polished them. The next one, they didn't.
Okay.
I have an answer for everything. All right. Thanks.
I read that when you were during World War I in the Air Force, you would slalom your airplane in between telephone poles.
Yeah, that's true. As a matter of fact, I did 19 in a row once. Okay? That's underneath the wires and between the telephone poles. Yeah, right. Okay, you're welcome.
Hi. Supposedly you were caught in the transporter vein for 75 years. Would you have had any thoughts or anything hypothetically if you were caught in there 75 years?
No, because they had also moleculized my brain. Okay? But hopefully it went all back together again, in the proper order. Okay? Thank you.
Anyone else here?
Admiral, there be whales here!
Between the end of the old series and when you started with doing voices for the animated series and so forth, what kind of activities were you doing?
Actually, basically, we finished shooting in January of '69, right? And about once a month, I was on some other episodes, about once a month. And that went on '69, '70. And in the early part of '71, a director that I had worked for before and played a very pucka British officer, he called me up from Madrid and said, Jimmy, he says, can you do a French-Canadian accent? I said, certainly. And he says, okay, he says, let your beard grow and be over here in 5 days, right? So I went over I left the very next day and I went to Rome, spent 3 days in Rome, and then flew back to Madrid and was shooting that movie for about 5 months. And that was very exciting. But when I came back, In July, because I took about 4 weeks going around Europe and spending all the money I made. And anyway, when I got back, my agent would send me out to read for the part, and by that time, of course, Star Trek was still running 7 nights a week, you know, from September of '69. And I'd walk into an office there, and the secretary would say, "Oh, Scotty," you know, and the producer would say the same thing, and that's all I heard. I wasn't even given a chance to read. And obviously, you know, what they were saying to themselves, that we don't have no part for a Scotsman here. You know, so I couldn't fight it. You know, there's no way. So for 3 or 4 years, I did not work in the business. Fortunately, though, in late 1971, Program Corporation of America, which is a big lecture agency, wrote me a letter and said that we are getting a lot of requests for you to appear at universities, and would you like to sign with us? We take 30%. So I figured, well, that's 70% I wasn't getting, you know? So I signed with them, and I did an awful lot of that for the next 10, 12 years. And in 1977, I did 42 universities. So that's quite a bundle of money, okay? Then in '73, I started rehearsing a play that ran for about 11 months in San Francisco. And then I did another play out there for about 3 months called Teddy. And, you know, I had great fun doing those characters. And I got great reviews. Okay? Thank you, Jim. Hi there. How are you?
It's a long question. It's 2-part. The first part, how much did the writers work with you in developing Scotty's lines for the Next Generation episode that you appeared in?
Oh, the Next Generation. They didn't work with me at all. They just, I mean, as a matter of fact, I had the script 1 day before I started shooting. And, I mean, that was tough, you know, because the writers, Ron Moore, you know, they put in these very difficult technical things, and which normally an engineer would be so used to doing. It's like a doctor reeling off medicine to a pharmacist, you know, and the pharmacist being able to read what the heck he's saying and everything else, but not me. We had to use cue cards at one of the times. We're walking down that corridor, and it was very difficult. But the majority of the other scenes which didn't have a whole bunch of technical jargon in it, they were just delightful to do, you know.
The second part of my question, and the rest of that, throughout all of the episodes and throughout the movies, Scotty never gave up a chance to learn something new. He would always be awestruck about fantastic new technology. And it really surprised me that the character backed off from desiring to catch up with this new stuff. And I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about the character. Do you think that he really would have walked away from all this vast new technology that he himself was proud of?
But as Scotty said in the thing, it says, I'm no longer 18 years old. You remember that line when I'm talking with Captain Picard, you know. Hey, listen, when you're 72, you know, you don't care too much about going back to school and learning a bunch of stuff that you're supposed to know anyway, you know. 75 years, a long time, son. Okay.
I was just wondering which Enterprise version you like better.
I like my own. Mine. Okay? All right, come on now.
How did you feel when Star Trek, the first series, was canceled?
Well, we certainly weren't very happy about that, because we thought, boy, we've got a great show here, and we just couldn't believe that other people didn't feel the same way, you know. But then again, once the convention started, and which is all the fans' fault, you know, then hey, we were vindicated. So we're quite happy about it now, okay? Thank you. The Cheddarhead.
Right. Two questions, and one you partially answered, and that was in terms of the next generation. The character that you played in terms of in that position seemed a little bit more pushy than Scott normally might have been. And I hear that you didn't have much opportunity to shape that character. Is that correct?
Well, not really. I mean, I didn't have that much opportunity to learn those technical words, you know. I mean, that was difficult, you know. But anyway, no, I mean, I think that I wouldn't exactly call him pushy. There must have to be another word that's better. Okay. That's right.
In the subsequent movies, the Enterprise never developed transport, and I understand that was Gene's decision. How did you feel about that?
Well, that was Harv Bennett's decision to go for transwarp. And to me, let me tell you something about the producers of these things. Anytime they can make something new in it, they get not only credit for it, but they get paid for it. Right? And actually, I'm quite sure that Harv Bennett worked on this Academy show that he wanted to do, right? With none of us in it, so that he would then take over control of Star Trek. And when the president of Paramount found out that he didn't want us in it, then he fired him. You know? And I've heard that from 4 or 5 sources. Okay? Thank you. I don't care what Harv Bennett says. All he has to do is answer me who edited Star Trek 2.
I was wondering if you ever got tired of doing your Scotty voice all the time.
Good gracious, no, Lenny, I don't think I'd do that at all. I would never get tired of it. Thank you. Hi there.
What was your most embarrassing moment of Star Trek? What was your most embarrassing moment of Star Trek?
Oh, that was when a young lady tried to find out what a Scotsman wore under his kilt. We found out that nothing was worn of in perfect working order. Okay? Hi, how are you?
Good, that's good.
My name's James.
Come on, sweetie. Hi.
First of all, I'd like to say that you've always been my favorite from the original show.
Oh, yeah. That you said from the original.
Yes. I would like to know where you received your theatrical training and if there is any role that you've always wanted to play that you've never gotten the opportunity to.
Oh, that's very easy to answer. But fortunately for me, shortly after the war, because of something that just happened to me, you know, and that's a long story, but that's why it just happened to me, and things happened to me, and all I had to do was do the work. So I won a scholarship to the neighborhood playhouse in New York City, and which was a 2-year scholarship. And when I finished that, they asked me to stay on and teach, which I did for nearly 3 years. But I really didn't like teaching because nobody wanted to work as hard as I did when I was a student. Okay, so I backed off. All right. However, by being there for that length of time, 5.5 years later, and people were telling me how good I was and everything else, then hey, you know, 5.5 years later, I didn't know anything else. Okay? So there you go. Thank you. Hi, sweetheart.
What would a turbo do to an engine? What would a turbo do to an engine?
What would a turbo do to an engine? It would gum it up. All right? We just can't have that happen. Okay? It's like, a tribble would be like throwing a monkey wrench in there.
No, I'm going.
It'd be all gooey. Okay? Thank you.
You're more interested.
I like your hat.
Thanks. I have two questions. Okay, the first one is, what other shows have you been on besides Star Trek?
What other shows have I been on besides Star Trek? Let me tell you, too many to count. Okay? I was on television the very first Tuesday of television back in 1948. And I worked about every month after that, right? I have done over 4,000 radio shows. I've done over 450 live television shows besides all the stuff, the pictures that I've done, besides all the Star Trek episodes. Okay? All right. Is that good enough for you? Okay. Yeah.
Of all the lines you've said on Star Trek, what was your favorite line?
Up your shaft.
I just want to let you know that, in my opinion, with the amount of time you were given in the episode Relics, you did a very, very good job. With your long experience with Star Trek, what has been your most memorable event connected with that?
Well, I really don't know. I mean, there's tremendous things. I can remember one thing in the very early years that was very complimentary that Gene said to me. He said, Jimmy, he said, I just want you to know that if I want everybody to believe in this thing, whatever is happening, says I always cut to your close-ups. So that's very complimentary. I think that was well done.
The other thing I wanted to ask, or wanted to comment on and ask you about was, because of Star Trek, I'm in the process of getting my television broadcasting degree. What would you advise someone in my position to do in order to help his career?
Well, basically, to me, the only thing that I can think of that's to do, because if you're asking me for acting advice, then it is no good, because advice to an actor is absolutely useless, because it's such a personal thing, But if you're asking me what to do, if you're not a hard worker now, make yourself one. Okay? That's it. Okay, you're very welcome. All right. Hi.
Sorry, two questions. First of all, do you have any regrets from when you played Relics from not working with Whoopi Goldberg as the original script was intended?
Oh yeah, I'd love to work with Whoopi. As a matter of fact, I worked with Troy, also, Counselor Troy, and that scene, because the show was long, was cut, and that was one of the scenes that I really liked, because I blew up at her, and I stalked out, and the next place I went to was the bar, but I met Data, of course, But it's too bad. Yeah, I'm sorry that they didn't have Whoopi in there.
And the next question is really from my mom. She wants to know if you're married or if you've ever been married.
Oh yes, I've been married. Yeah, and I'm still married. I just had my 18th anniversary with a very lovely young lady. Thank you. Okay, Mom, that's where it goes.
If you were given the chance to do like a reunion show with the original cast of Star Trek, would you jump at the chance or would you like shy it off or something?
What do you mean a reunion show? A number 7 I would do.
A movie, just a show or something. Just a reunion.
Well, not really. I don't know. I don't really what you mean by reunion. No, I didn't want to do that. No. Thank you. Okay. Hi, sweetheart.
What got you started in acting?
There we go now. Well, I had spent 6 years and 2 months in the Canadian Army fighting World War II, right? And 5.5 of that was overseas, without going home. And I became from a private up to a captain. I learned to fly and everything else. When the war was over, I came back home and stayed home for about a week. Went up north fishing for about 5 days. Came back, wondered what I was going to do. One of my older brothers said, why don't you go to the Veterans Administration School and bone up on subjects that you haven't had for over 6 years. So I said, wow, that's a good idea. So I did that, and what I intended to do then was to go to the University of Western Ontario in London, Ontario, which is a very good university, and I know lots of my friends who've been well trained there. And but one night between Christmas and New Year's of 45 and 46, I happened to turn on a radio, and that was the only entertainment there was, other than reading at that time. And I turned on this radio, and it was the worst radio show I had ever heard. It was really bad. So, being Irish, I got my dander up, and I got some stuff ready to read, and the next morning I went down to the local radio radio station, CFPL, and I said to the guy there, I said, I want to make a recording. Oh, he says, you mean a transcription? I said, whatever, you know, and everything else. So I made it, and I listened to it. It's the first time I ever heard my own voice, right? And I said to the operator, I said, well, that's awful. He said, well, I don't think so. He said, I think it's great, and everything else. I said, well, where do you go to learn? This is all just, you know, right off the top of my head. And I said, where do you go to learn? That morning, a brochure had arrived of a drama school that was opening in Toronto. I took the book, sent them a telegram, got an answer back about 3 hours later, and I was there the following Monday going to school. I won a scholarship there after 6 months, and that started me rolling. Okay? That's how I did it. Okay. We got 5 minutes. Those are all the questions, okay? No more questions after that. Yeah.
I'd like to know how many Star Trek conventions you do per year and how you feel about it.
I do about 35, and don't you think I'm having a good time? Thank you, dear. I really love it. Pleasure.
I would like to know if Scotty, after he got buzzed off in the show, if he's ever going to be buzzing to the station, the space station.
Deep Space Nine. Why not? You know, I mean, you know, that's up to them. If they want to cast me, I'm available. I'm available for Next Generation also. I'm there hanging around.
Because time is limited, I'll cut this short. In Star Trek 6, you went to the Next Generation set to work on the movie. And I was wondering how you felt going back to those same sets this year, because they're redressed and everything. Was the atmosphere really different from the movie?
Oh, not really. No, not at all. It was just the Paramount was trying to save some money, that's all. And most of the ships would look alike in that class anyway.
The other part of the question is, was it run differently during the day between the two?
What?
Was it run differently from the movie and the TV show?
Movies are always different than TV shows, yeah. They spend much more time with movies. Okay? Thank you. But they spend a lot of time on relics also. Because they knew they had a good show.
I was wondering, who's your favorite villain in the original series?
My favorite villain? I think he was a Klingon, and it was played by John Colicos.
And my other question was, in Next Generation, they're friends with the Klingons. Why don't they have a cloaking system?
Boy, you got me. Maybe the Klingons don't want to do it. But they have a cloaking system. No, they don't have that. Oh. Well, you're up on it, aren't you? I really think there is life out there because everything that falls on Earth from whatever comes around is made up of the same stuff that we're made up of, right? It's got the same chemistry. So to me, why wouldn't there be something out there? You think about it. Do a lot of thinking about it. Who knows? Maybe you'll be an astronaut. Okay? Thank you. All right. Now, I'll tell you what, I do want to tell you, particularly those who are disappearing, I only sign my name. I do not personalize. I will sign 2 objects only. Please do not ask for any more, but at least I sign. Before we leave, though, I'm going to give you a Scottish toast to tell you what I really think of you. Okay? I'll say it twice, and then I'll translate it. Here's Teus and was like a sky few and there are thee. Here's Teus and was like a sky few and there are thee. Nobody could possibly be as good as we are. To be that good, they'd have to be dead. Thank you.